Okay, Emily, you win. I kind of wanted to make you just keep going to see how long you would, but you got me in the lycanthrope mood. So let's talk about werewolves. Werewolves are a creature steeped in folklore, and almost everybody knows what they are. Whether it is the man who turns to a wolf when the moon rises, or somebody who has the ability to take a deep bestial form whenever they feel like it. Lycanthropes and werewolves in general are just a staple in folklore, myth, legend, and of course, Dungeons and Dragons. That being said, it is really difficult to run them properly in your games, especially if you have a player who is a lycanthrope. And that's what we're talking about today. Not only how to run for lycanthropes if you're a DM, but also how to play as them if you're a player. So let's go over the rules and then we'll figure out how to actually run those rules properly. In the core rules, the way that a player or an individual can be infected by lycanthropy is when a werewolf uses their bite attack. Only their bite attack, not their claw attack. When this happens, the player needs to make a DC saving throw based off of the type of creature that they're currently fighting in order to resist the poison. If it hits them, they're then diseased and they have lycanthropy. That's just how it works. You're just infected with lycanthropy now. It's really shockingly easy to get, actually. And the problem with this is there are two different ways of running lycanthropy according to the monster manual. It says that one, a player can either refuse to accept their lycanthropy, at which point it is burned deep down inside of them and they only become a lycanthrope when the full moon arises, or they could choose to embrace it and learn it. But there's no real explanation of what embracing it and learning it means. Not only this, if they choose to embrace it and learn it, there's basically only upsides. You become a lycanthrope, which means you can then attain the werewolf form if you like, or were-tiger, were-bear, whatever sort of lycanthrope you are, but you gain certain abilities with that. One, it says if your strength is lower than 15, it's now 15. Congratulations, free massive strength buff. If you're a wizard, that's amazing. Also, you continue to go on and get more of their abilities and traits. You gain their movement speeds, you gain their damage immunities, which we'll get to in a second, and you get their actions that don't require any equipment, which means you get their bite and claw attack and can then infect anybody else that you want. But let's talk about that one I just mentioned. Damage immunities. Here's the problem with giving your players immunities that werewolves and lycanthropes have. They're immune to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing that isn't silvered. Now, depending on what type of game you're running and how far along your players are in levels, that can be a huge problem. Because early game, non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing is one of the most common types in the game, and it immediately makes you way better than most of the other players at your table, depending on your party makeup. If there's a barbarian there and you happen to be a fighter, you are now a more effective barbarian. Yeah, great that you have halved bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. I'm immune to it. Now later in the game, this becomes much less of a problem. Magical piercing, bludgeoning, and slashing is just not really an issue because, well, obviously a lot of people are going to start having that as more people get magical items and you're higher level up, as well as having those silvered weapons. Eventually, your player is going to gain a reputation of being a lycanthrope and people will begin to bring silvered weapons. Though as a DM, please be careful with this. You don't want to start targeting your player. Things must make sense. You can't just start giving every single enemy silvered weapons. I mean, why in the world would they even have that? So that's why a lot of the times it's very dangerous to give your players lycanthropy, especially at early levels, because of course, a player is probably going to embrace that because it gives a lot of cool stuff. Not to mention, it allows them to shape change into their lycanthrope form. And as a player, personally, if I were given the option, I'd probably be very on board with it, depending on my character, of course. And that's what you want to do as a player here. Yes, the benefits are very cool, but consider if your character would be okay with this. It is important to remember that you shouldn't sacrifice your character for the cool extra stats and abilities. Find something that works out. But as the Dungeon Master, what do you do when your players are infected with lycanthropy? Well, there is a magical item that allows you to cure lycanthropy. And so you can just add that into your world, make a quest about it. In fact, that's pretty much what I did when 2 of my players were infected with lycanthropy. But of course the question came out, do they embrace it? And so I gave them a little bit of leeway, saying the poison was still infecting their system and diseasing them? Is that a word? Causing them to be infected with the disease, but it hadn't taken full effect yet, and so they could try and go cure it. Now mind you, one of them is a paladin, and paladins do have the ability to cure disease, so I also had to handle that. Very easy, just say this is a magical disease that is not so easily removed. I think a player should be able to understand that, and as a DM, just explain to them that there are very potent magical effects in the world that do need a little bit more to get taken care of. And if they're ever infected with them, you will offer them the opportunity to go get those items. You're not just going to infect them and leave them with it. But say that the player does want to take the lycanthropy. Well, how do you handle that then? I would make it a journey. Have them have to make different saving throws. As of right now, I actually occasionally have the two players have to make a Constitution saving throw, or else the lycanthropy gets worse, and their time limit is running out. But if they want to start as a lycanthrope, one, you could just add that as their character abilities. If they're a fighter because they are stronger and faster than everybody else. A barbarian because they are a lycanthrope. Or you can offer them additional feats. Replace a lot of the feats that already exist with ones that only lycanthropes could take. You can homebrew them pretty easily. Just off the top of my head, I could imagine it homebrewing a feat that allows you to take bonus action attacks, much like a frenzied barbarian does, and add that as part of the lycanthrope trait. Offer that to your players not as a extra feat necessarily, but as something they can take if they want to go down that route. Which, by the way, if lycanthropy, gothic horror, and all of that sort of eldritch abomination stuff is your thing, then let me introduce you to the sponsor of our video. This is Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt, and it is an incredible Kickstarter. Started by my friend Evan, or Monkey DM, it was funded in under 8 minutes, and they are still blasting past their stretch goals. If you want to get something like this, it is incredible. It has rules for Soulsborne-like environments, as well as very, very cool monsters, and a new spell school called Osteomancy, which is focusing on bones, which I love. So please go give them your support and check it out. Link is in the description. Honestly, as a player, I think this is the last piece of the puzzle that you really do need to ask yourself. How much does this lycanthropy play into your character? Is it part of their character arc? If your player has any kind of arc where they have a difficulty accepting who they are, this is an awesome allegory for that I would lean into. If you have a hard time, even as a wizard, accepting a certain portion of yourself, maybe you're a very prim and proper wizard who has a hard time ever being themselves, and they must always be standing up straight, upright, and have the most perfect posture. And there is a part of them that just wants to let loose. This is a great way to explore that. This is a great storytelling tool, and it has been used as one through a lot of different media throughout the years. So embrace that, use it, don't just let it fall by the wayside. Additionally, I would really plan how this goes into your build. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, that trait of the immunities is very strong, and so I would be careful with it. I don't want everybody to overshadow everyone else because they're a lycanthrope. And for my game personally, I am going to take that immunity and I'm going to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to allow them to accept that immunity, that very powerful ability, so long as they take some detriments to themselves. Almost like a Frenzied Barbarian Rage, like I mentioned earlier. Yes, you can accept the stronger portion, so long as you accept the level of exhaustion that comes with it. Actually, I think that's probably exactly what I will do, or at least something similar. So as DMs, I would be cautious with that, and as players, I would as well. You don't want to outshine everybody else and make them jealous of your cool new toy. But at the same time, other players should be able to embrace this and find it exciting, because it is an exciting moment, so long as everybody's handling it respectfully. If you want to hear more about how to play interesting player characters, I have an awesome playlist right here that I have been curating. Go out into the world, make it your own.